abilities could best use what? When you are at that level, you are in line, so that when the online comes, you are better able to cope. Number 2 is that we have to be up to date. Ladies and gentlemen, our PhDs are just the beginning of an academic life of a more serious learning. The PhD certifies that you are now capable of independent learning and you are willing to continue learning. That is why your thesis always has suggestions for further research. So, try to be up to date in terms of the state of knowledge, in terms of where you get the knowledge from, in terms of the tools you can use and the methods. And number 3, we said earlier, it's not a question of teaching now and evaluating later. Always find a way of getting feedback. Either students sending you a few sentences on what they would like to learn, on how they feel about what you've done, on how they think it can be done better. And of course, formal tests are also a form of feedback. The important thing is that when you feedback, there has to be an arrow feeding in to where the back was, so that you keep improving. And students engage in activities will make mistakes. They will sometimes misunderstand. They will sometimes get tired. They sometimes just lose interest. What they need is not shut up, it's not get away, not away, you stupid. They need positive reinforcement. That is, oh, you've been doing well, John. Yes, you just turn left and right on your seat and you find you're not sleeping anymore. Yes, Jane has now been talking. Please let's hear her. And those who do it, all this encouragement, that's what I mean by positive reinforcement. And next, when students are engaged in activities, you don't stand off. A participant observer, that is, you are keenly watching what is happening, and you are keenly also offering assistance when necessary. And you are tipping in to clarify issues. And number 6 works, peer teaching. Yesterday I talked about teachers training teachers. This one's because of students teaching students. When people are in groups working, there comes a time when one of them gets up. He or she is not formally elected, but because of prior knowledge, prior learning, that person becomes the leader of the group. But there are also cases where among 5 people, there'll be one who has learned this before or who has learned it faster than the others. If that person communicates or practicals or field trip, less above if you follow the classroom activities with out of class assignment, I find a case where somebody teaching sources of history says to the students, 5 minutes to the time, as many of you as possible, when you get back, ask your grandfather, grandmother, whoever you can, or any elder you can find, something about the history of which means even though they've learned about something about the origin of the village, they're now going to be further enriched with the discussions, the notes they will take from people outside the classroom. They will come back and compare notes. They come back and talk to you in groups and as a class on what they have experienced. By the way, sir, So the two issues there, know your students and refresh yourself. Because if you are able to go through these two, you find it becomes easier for your teaching to become more of guiding than more of telling. And if you practice more of guiding and more of telling, then you are taking your task as one of mind to mind and not just merely face to face. Yeah. We summarize. Yes, in summary, this has been, it looks short in terms of time, but when you build it, all the mind-boggling issues that the mind to mind has raised, I think it's going to be richer. We may last long on the subject, but we may not be unhappy. So, but to summarize, mind-to-mind pedagogy, as we've shown, more readily yields quality learning outcomes. And quality learning outcomes, we discussed it both yesterday and today. And so we need a radical paradigm shift because we are all very sometimes versed. We're always seeing telling as teaching, but to shift to guiding, which is an appropriate application of the mind-to-mind pedagogy. So teachers at the university level will be in a better position to apply what we've been saying if they try to remember the principle of I teach John Latin. I will not only know Latin, I must also know the students and also rearming themselves and constantly refreshing themselves. And remember, refreshing goes beyond knowing more about your subject. This day and age, knowing the sources of knowledge is even better. It also reforming, improving on their values, attitudes, work habits, study habits, and the rest, so that whatever we do will result in children, young people who will be more life ready, not simply work ready, but life ready, so that they can readily fit into the new world of the 21st century, a complex, ever-changing world in which they find themselves. Thank you very much. So, again, we'll be introducing some takeaway, our usual packet of biscuits. And the one that is most appropriate for what we've been discussing today is a short paper by me, appropriately titled Teaching for Learning. This will be, as we've always done, emailed to all registered participants by AAU. I don't know if AAU is charging you for making these valuable documents available, but it's been for me another fantastic session. I thank you very much and hope to continue the discussion with you in the very near future.
All right, thank you very much, Prof, for the session today as well. I think today has been very smooth, and we will play the video. We'll play the video during the session, and then during the Q&A session, Prof, you will respond to the questions and comment live.
Oh, very good. Let me smoke some coffee.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much. You've always been on standby. You're wonderful.
Yes. Thank you, Prof.
I hope you'll be the next Secretary General of AAU.
I'm in the near future.
No, something bigger than that. Don't worry. You are too.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof, for your excellent presentation once again. And for those of us who have been here for this past few days, we know that we have really have a great encounter which we would use to influence our institutions on how we go about our teaching and the best way for us to do it. And so we'll take some few comments from our participants. If you are on, kindly raise your hands. Using the raise hand button, I will allow you to speak. But before we go on, there is this comment in the chat that I read, and I think that we can all take the comment. And it says that thank you so much for this presentation, Prof. I like the mind-to-mind way of learning compared to face-to-face. The big elephant in the room, especially with universities in Africa, is the number of students. So classes have about 300 to 500 students, and it's allocated to one lecturer. How can that lecturer implement mind-to-mind learning? So these are some of the challenges that we have on the continent. And this comment by Prof. Opete is very crucial. He said, from what we've learned this past days, there is the need for the establishment of institutes of pedagogy to be assessed by all who work at all levels of education establishment. Such institutes should be distinct from the Faculty of Education, whose focus is on so-called subject areas, teaching methods. Institutes of pedagogy should project more than the subject matter content of subject areas, but also skills, attitude, and behaviors in subject areas. And so these are some of the few comments that we have. There is a lot more. I would ask that you raise your hands. And so, Prof, I've asked you to unmute. Kindly unmute and ask your question. Prof. Kanu, if you can hear me, kindly unmute and ask your question. Thank you very much. Okay, since Prof is not talking, we'll still go. Okay, Prof Obanya is on. Prof, can you quickly come in before we take some of the comments in the chat? Thank you very much. Prof Pai.
Aaron?
Yes, go ahead, Prof. Thank you very much. We can hear you.
What's the question? I didn't hear it.
Okay. So I'll go back to it again.
Okay.
So Prof is saying that from Tobias, he said he likes the mind-to-mind way of learning compared to the face-to-face. Yes. The big elephant in the room, especially with universities in Africa, is the number of students. So classes have 500 to 300 students.
The number of students.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best way to go about it is to try. If you say you're not going to do it, then what answer do you get? My experience is simply this. Even working with older people from ministries and the teaching force, you are looking for 30 people, you have 130, and I can send you photographs to confirm. By the time you set people working, if it's a large group, it takes some time to get started. But once you start, they begin to enjoy it. So please, all you do is that you don't rush through the program, you go bit by bit. But by the time you lay the foundation through the tiny beginning bits, the other ones become easier. So my suggestion is don't give up trying. Still try to get it working. I have had to stay with a university in Nigeria with 420 people trying to learn how to teach at the university level. And when you come into the hall, you'll be amazed. By the time they've gone into 80 tiny groups and they are doing their own thing, to stop them becomes a problem. But when you are organizing, sit down here, go this way, it's usually difficult to start with. But anything that is difficult means it's going to be fruitful. So just keep trying and learn to do it by doing it.
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much. And then a lot of comments thanking you so much for the excellent presentation they've had so far. I think that's
Waiting for
about.
more questions.
Yeah, Prof. I'm trying to go through, but there are not more questions, but rather appreciation for your elaborate presentations that we had. But I think I was reading this one and then you were not there. And then one professor wanted to ask that we establish institutes of pedagogy to be assessed by all who work on all levels of educational establishment. Prof, what is your view on that? It should be different from the education faculties, but rather an institute of pedagogy. Mm.
Oh, la, la. Hello,
Yes, Prof.
Irene?
Yes, Prof. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you want me to comment on that? An institute, something?
Yes, the Institute of
What
Pedagogy.
was the question?
Prof, I'm
Oh,
saying that the professor is also saying that there is a need to establish an institute of pedagogy to be accessed by all who
okay.
work on
This
all.
was
Yes,
raised yesterday as well.
right.
We everywhere, and it's beginning to happen in many African universities. Here in Ibadan University, there's a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, and you don't get your appointment confirmed until you have gone through that course. And the course is held in such a way that they respond to the challenges you have to meet in working under difficult conditions, because the conditions are not easy here. I've also been in another university where my job there led to the establishment of such a center. So yesterday we said first we have to act at a policy level, institutional policy that recognizes the three elements of academic excellence: being a consummate researcher, a creative teacher, and a committed change agent, meaning that all the activities have to be interlinked. Two, that your recruitment, your confirmation, your progression, all that will you don't only take the number of papers, but you also take in conjunction, give at least some weight to the effect you've had on teaching, the impact you've made on students, which you can only do through teaching. Then, then follow through a training program that is not just an induction course, but goes on throughout the year and throughout all levels of university career, including those who claim to have qualifications in education.
Right. Thank you very much. We are still taking questions. And so if anyone has a question or a comment, you can raise your hand using the button and then I would allow you speak. But thank you, Prof, for this elaborate presentation. Kwesi, okay, Prof Kanu, I've asked you to unmute, kindly unmute and then go ahead.
Yes, thank you so very much. I believe that what Professor Banya has been exposing us to in these past few days is to bring out clearly the importance of qualitative teaching. And it goes beyond what happens at faculties of education presently. And that is why I believe what I have suggested, which he has also, been saying in a different way, is what we should ask for in our various higher education institutions. And not just have them established, but have them function in a way to produce quality learning of pedagogic approaches in all areas of learning, whether formal, non-formal, or informal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kanu, for that comment. And so, Kwesi, I'm done with what is in the chat, and then there is no hand raised. Okay, we've got another one from Professor Abiodun. So, Professor Abiodun, if you can hear me, I've asked you to unmute. Can you unmute and ask your question, please? Thank you.
Yeah, before I leave the opportunity to comment, I want to look at the challenge of large class. The large class challenge is a persistent issue, especially in this 21st century. Many students are trooping, just like Prof. Obanya said, that in the olden days when we have very small class, we can easily go on with our regular conventional lecture method, whereas teachers just blow grammar, pour knowledge into the mind of the student, as if they are basket receiving knowledge. But in this 21st century, when we have many students in the class, like an issue of 300 to 500 students in front of a lecturer, I want to say that non-conventional instructional strategy will solve the problem. And now, what do I mean by being a rustic? What do I mean by being pragmatic? I want to say categorically that we need to break the class into group and assign money, just like Prof said, that we bring them to the social laboratory. Let them be divided into different groups, and let them have the lecture note the practical activity in advance, which they will have done at home at their hostel. Then when they come to the class, the leader of this small group will now take charge to bring the idea from their mind to the mind of the class, and the lecturer will just facilitate. This one will perfectly solve to a greater extent challenge of large class. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Biodun. Humphrey, you have your hands up. If you can hear me, kindly unmute Humphrey.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Okay, Humphrey, your internet is very bad. So, Grace, can you kindly go?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please. Grace, kindly go ahead.
Hello? Can you? Yes. Yeah, about classes into groups. Yeah, I want to ask, how is it going to work when you have an hour lecture, 1 hour?
I think Grace has been logged out.
Okay, Kwesi, kindly take over, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Irene. Humphrey, your hand is still up. Let's see if your internet is better this time around. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. And it has been a wonderful one. It has been a wonderful presentation. Great thanks to Prof for the wonderful presentation. I'm Humphrey from Kesmos International University, and I have a worry with respect to the environment in Africa and in Cameroon, to be precise, where I'm based. I just want to ask this: how can we tackle the lack of resources to engage in mind-to-mind teaching, which is contrary to the traditional way of teaching in most African countries? And having in mind also the number of students that are usually enrolled for a particular, approximately close to, and in a day you can have approximately close to 3 courses or 4 courses that students are supposed to attend a day. Imagine that each lecturer is supposed to engage into this methodology of teaching. The time, and also considering every other aspect, like, of course, it costs money to be able to, that's just one aspect of the resources that we need to be able to make provision for the various items that if we are supposed to group students in various subgroups to be able to coordinate these students. So I just wish to know how we can be able to manage this situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Humphrey. Prof. Pai, would you want to take that? Hello, Prof. Prof. Obayam. All right. So, Humphrey, when Prof logs in, finally, we would have him answer your question. But we have some few minutes left. I think about 3 minutes left. And so we still want to open the platform. If you have a question, comment, contribution, we'll make that available. Yes.
2 minutes for me. Hello.
Yes, Prof.
The question raised
Prof,
by
please go ahead.
Professor Adeshina and others, I think for those of us who belong to faculties of education, the first job is advocacy. And advocacy is not preaching by word of mouth. Start with a little group of enthusiasts and people interested in, and make it issues-based. My problem is large classes. We discuss and see how we can get out of it. My problem is engaging 20 people in a laboratory that can only take 5. We see what you can do. My problem is that they have no basics in science. Oh la la.
Okay, we seem to have lost Professor Pai Obanya, but I think he was making a very remarkable comment. Stella says that to have students in groups is a good idea, but with large number of students and limited time of lecture, how is it possible? Prof is back. Prof, please go ahead.
Everything is possible, and I've done it. So I said, first of all, advocacy, practical one where you are doing things and people are doing and looking at you. Eventually you gain science. Then there's a question raised about science-based courses. Science-based courses are the most practical in the world. And what they should do is there should be no dichotomy between what they call theory and practice. Start with practical work and deduce the practice from it. You'll be surprised how happy the students will be, because this runs contrary to what they are doing elsewhere. And then the worry about the environment in which we are working and the time we have. Ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself the other question. If you didn't do it, what will you get? I think it's better to do very little at a time and achieve something than to spend the hour or so rush through and get nothing. And when we say get something, we mean changing the learner positively, not just cramming him with principles and definitions. So please, I appreciate those worries, but the best way not to ease the worry is to start. And as you start, you learn and you adjust. Because if you say you don't do it at all, you don't get nowhere. And if we don't get nowhere, one of these days, these students are going to throw us out of the windows, and they go to court and win the case because they came there for education and they're not getting it. And education now goes beyond certificates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Education indeed goes beyond certificate. But Prof, we seem to have this comment flying through all our engagement that we have a lot of students in our classrooms. For us who are very young in the system,
do the minimum and let that lot of students. I'm talking of 400 students in a hall, and they're learning something that is practical. It is better for me to get them through a 45-minute period where in groups of 2 and 1 and all that, they get something done, than to say, I now deliver a lecture and go away. Because if I deliver a lecture and go away, they do nothing. And we are saying the large class, like the class is large, is not an excuse. You can always organize large classes each other. You throw a question and they discuss it among themselves, and 2 or 3 people give an answer, and you continue the discussion from there. It is possible. Because the opposite doesn't lead you anything anywhere. Please, my plea is don't give up in spite of the large numbers. In fact, the large numbers are also a reason for innovative teaching.
Great. I think, Prof, you put it right on. Then I think it's, I don't know, that is the best feedback we can have. Dr. Esther, you want to add something? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
About policy level, institution level, and so on. I want to draw our attention to something, that just as we have categories of students who are not ready, who are not determined, who are not motivated, so do we have lecturers who fall into these different categories. We have all kinds of difficulties, admitted. Where we still want to be creative, we can be creative. But I will lay emphasis on something. There are two areas that we have not talked about. There is intrinsic motivation. That one comes from you, from the inside, and you do whatever you can do under any circumstance and so on. There is also the extrinsic one. We need to also talk about motivating lecturers too. The reward system currently in many universities does not motivate the lecturers to put in their best. I think as we talk to lecturers, as we train teachers and so on, we should also push a little for the government, for the institutions to reward accordingly. Give additional incentives for lecturers, teachers to want to work.
Thank you very much, Dr. Esther, for that contribution. Shioma Bless Chikere says, start doing, let me get that correct. Start doing something, no matter how small, when it seems impossible. I have taken this stand for years, and something good has been coming out gradually from the students, despite the growing number of students. Thank you very much, erudite Prof. Yes, Prof, no motivation exists where I am employed. All right, thank you very much. I think we are getting great feedback from ourselves, and we sincerely appreciate all your comments. A good conversation by Professor Payubanya is the one that never ends, and so we know that this conversation will go on and on and on and on until thy kingdom comes. The purpose is that we want to transform African higher education. Prof has agreed to do the fourth module on Monday. So on Monday at exactly 12 o'clock GMT, using the same link and the same meeting ID and password, we'll be having the fourth module that will bring the first session to a close. And those of you who have requested for certificates, who will account details and then also the payment modalities for you to be certified for this training as well. From the 20th of April, we are also bringing you the research method training, which is free for all university academics, and especially for our postgraduate students. Those of you who joined very early, I showed you the modules. Let me see if I can do that for you again. Great. So we'll be looking at the overview of research methods, and then we'll look at the research process. We'll look at ethics and politics and cultural context of research. We also look at sampling in research, which is very critical, the measurement in research, surveys, and then the crucial of it all is data analysis and the qualitative as well. So this will be brought to you by a professor or moderated by Professor Osei Dakwa, who's a visiting professor at Jane Addams College of Social Work, University of Illinois in USA. So this is also free. We'll be sending you emails and then give you every details that you require to join the class. On this note, on behalf of Professor Payubanya, my colleague Irene, and the Secretary General of AAU, want to say thank you so much for spending the best part of your day with us. Together, we have learned a lot, and we urge all to go out there into our classrooms and ensure that we assure quality in our teaching and learning. Time on Monday, it has been very excellent day for all of us. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Estella, is your hand up?
Very much for.
God bless you, AAU. God bless you.
Just waving.
Oh,
bye bye, everybody.
Oh, okay. God bless you. Yeah. Very kind.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cependant, l'autre phase plus exigeante sont devant lui. Et il convient de maintenir le cap et d'éviter toujours une particulièrement au sein des institutions de la République. De repenser notre action et dans des équilibres beaucoup plus ambitieuses, tant sur le plan de la consolidation des acquis que sur celui de la mise en
Okay, so we finally go off. Thank you, everyone. Bye.